Is it fair to exploit the dedication and professionalism of teachers in that way just so he can get cheaper holidays? The other argument is that the children who'll suffer as a result of this campaign and the High Court victory, so-called, are children from low-income families. We know that there's a direct link between low attainment and low attendance. So children who miss between 10 and 20% of their schooling, on average, 35% of them get 5 good GCSEs,
However,
including English and maths.
they're still covering that with this ruling, aren't they? They've said that it's only if it's regular, if they're missing school regularly, then they'll still be punished to a certain extent.
No, under this ruling, parents can now take their children out of school for roughly 10% of the school year. That's 1 day per fortnight, and we know that children who miss that much schooling are less likely to do well. We also know that the children who are more likely to be persistently absent are from the most deprived backgrounds.
Let's put that point to Jon. Jon, thanks for joining us this morning. So obviously you've read the article that Toby wrote, and you understand Toby's point here, but particularly on that point, regardless of your children that are doing very well and have a good attendance record at school, there are children that are going to suffer because of this, and they don't necessarily have parents that are that strict about getting them to school in the first place, and they're the children that are going to suffer.
Ben, I'll take that point, but the reason I did this interview, I told all media organisations I was doing no more interviews. The only reason I took this interview is because you got Toby Young. And Toby, I want to tell you, I wish I could have been in the studio today to see you face to face. Do you realise that article that you put online had a picture of my children in it? Are you conscious of the fact that I asked all media organisations not to put pictures of my children online or publish them, and you did it despite the fact that I repeatedly yesterday contacted your media organisation asking them to take that picture off? So any victory I had yesterday at the High Court wasn't a campaign I started. It was because a local authority prosecuted me when I'd done absolutely nothing wrong, and I gave the media as much time as I possibly could, you know, even to the detriment of my health. And you have the barefaced cheek to criticise me when you put a picture of my children...
Jon, to be fair, it's not Toby's decision what pictures go up within the article. That would have been somebody, so you would have literally written the words. But if we go back to the words and what he said...
Somebody's to blame for that.
No, I understand.
And Toby wrote an article, and that's been published online, and you guys asked me for pictures of my kids, and I said no, and you respected that. You didn't go onto Facebook. I've tried to set my privacy settings so nobody can see that stuff and publish that stuff. You know, but you guys asked and I said no, and the Mail Online printed pictures of my children with their faces pixelated. I will get back onto the point in question. Toby, you are not an expert. You may have started 4 free schools, but you're not an expert in educational attainment or attendance. Now, I have just in the last few minutes, this interview was arranged at very short notice, and I would have liked to have got the statistics across to this morning, but what I've done is I've been able to post them on Facebook, on this morning's Facebook page about this story. So if people go into the comments, they can completely debunk this theory that taking your kids on holiday destroys education or anybody else's education.
Jon, one of the points the initial point that Toby made as well, though, because and we appreciate you putting those figures on the website, is that actually it's not the children, it's not your children, it's not the children that have good attendance that maybe miss a week here or a few days throughout the year. It's the children from low-income families that actually don't have the families and the parents that are pushing them to go to school regularly.
Yeah, Toby's a snob, Ben. He's looking down his nose at families who are struggling, people on low income, people maybe living in difficult areas. He's looking down his nose, making comments like they can't get their kids to school because they're hungover. You're a disgusting and obnoxious man. Who says that about somebody who's maybe struggling in life? Yes, you and me are both quite lucky. We've got relatively privileged lives. I certainly don't come from a privileged background. You do, Toby, and you should be ashamed of yourself the way you've spoken about other parents.
Well, let's let Toby answer.
Disgusting.
First of all, on the first point, as you say, I'm not the picture editor, I'm just the writer. But in the piece I saw online, in the Mail Online, Jon's children's faces were pixelated. They weren't identifiable. But just to come back, he mentioned statistics. As I said earlier, children who miss 5% or less of their schooling, 73% of them get 5 good GCSEs, including maths and English. Children who miss between 10% and 20% of their schooling, less than half of them get 5 good GCSEs, including maths and English. And we also know that children...
1 minute, well, Jon, we'll come back to you in a moment. 1 minute, let Toby just finish.
We also know that children from the most deprived areas in England are 3 times more likely to be persistently absent than children from the least deprived areas. What Jon has done done has made it more difficult for schools to force parents who aren't as conscientious as they should be about making sure their children get into school on time, to force them to be more conscientious. He's effectively made that more difficult, and that means that children whose parents aren't as conscientious as he and I, those children are going to suffer, and they're going to
do you concede that, though? Do you concede that point that you have made it easier?
No, you and me are better than everybody else. We care about our kids more than anybody else. Everybody loves their parents, Toby. You and me are not better than anybody else. Stop looking down your nose at other parents. People are smart. They love their children. They know the education their children get is very, very important. What happened at the High Court, and Toby, you weren't there. There was lots of good, respectable journalists in the court yesterday who reported the story as it happened in court. You haven't read the case hasn't even been transcribed, so you have absolutely no idea.
John,
we went to Gob to say what happened in the court. You don't know. All as the High Court said, and it's perfectly reasonable, is that you cannot prosecute parents whose children have 97% attendance. That's not an unreasonable position for the High Court to take. What qualifies you to second guess two High Court judges who've studied the law their entire lives, who had the assistance of
John, let's let Toby answer some of these points, John, because you're throwing them at him thick and fast.
Hello, YouTube. For more of the same, just click here, and don't forget you can subscribe for even more of these amazing videos exclusive to our channel.
And I didn't realise. Oh.
What was that?
What I love is the fact that the lamp exploded, everybody jumped apart from Clover. Clover,
are you all right over there?
Sit. Good girl. Everyone okay? Good.
Do you know how I didn't
Happy Monday, everyone.